Is there anyone that you wouldn't talk to? I noticed you talked with Alex Jones, and that for a lot of people, I feel like could be crossing the line.
If someone thinks that is crossing the line, that's their problem. I mean, Alex Jones is a popular media figure who I was critical of in the interview, but the way that liberals want to exist is just ignore them and they'll go away. When obviously Trump just won, so evidently the policy of don't platform a problematic person and they'll just gradually sort of spin out into oblivion doesn't happen. I think that we should be encouraging more conversations across the political spectrum. And if these so-called progressives want to move forward with like a post-Trump reality, they have to factor in what factors caused these people to be like that in the first place, like Kelly, because you can't ignore that there's 77 million people, many of whom are working class, non-privileged American people who voted for Trump. So it's like, let's figure that out instead of, dividing people among lines of like, oh, you talk to Alex Jones, you must support fascism. But that being said, I wouldn't interview like the Klan. I wouldn't interview like neo-Nazis. I wouldn't pick a white supremacist group from obscurity and give them the chance to recruit via my platform.
Interesting. So you're saying people that already have some sort of a platform, that's
everybody
okay.
knows who Alex Jones is.
Yeah.
So if I talk to Alex Jones, no one's going to be like, wow, this guy seems cool. But if I were to take some dude like, like Orange County, white power, and like made them these huge icons and let millions of people see what they're about, that would absolutely increase their numbers.
So what about someone like Andrew Tate?
I would talk to Andrew Tate. I think he's an interesting guy. I think it's interesting. I'd be curious to know why so many like young dudes like turned away from progressive ideologies altogether and turned toward the manosphere. It's obviously happened. And I have an idea as to why,
What's your idea why?
I just think that identity politics have really made people feel excluded, especially young dudes, not just white, and made to feel like their ideas don't matter because they're too high on the privilege hierarchy. And I think that class politics have been totally, erased by people who are obsessing over identity shit. And that's why you have so many people being like, you know what, fuck all this shit. I don't want to care about anyone. If I don't matter as much as the next person, then I'm tapping out.
Because I think that would be a really interesting conversation, is you talking with him. I just feel like you'd be able to, I don't know, take it somewhere where a lot of other people haven't been able to do. And there's no denying the impact that he's made.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, hundreds of millions of people skyrocketing to the level of fame. He was, arguably like one of the most recognizable people in the United States for quite a bit.
And the question of why never really gets talked about. You have like publications that are compromised, like CNN and Bloomberg, being like, why so many young, sexist white men are gravitating toward this piece of shit.
And it literally just perpetuating the exact same thing. It's just like proving that agenda.
It's definitely interesting. I'm curious about the manosphere in general, and like why it's seen as being so beta to care about people and shit.
It would be fascinating if you had a video where you talked with like all of those guys in the video and got down to like the nitty gritty.
Yeah, because one thing too is like I'm not like a easily offended person, and I don't police people's speech really either. And there's this conception that like a lot of people think that I'm like super soft because I'm not conservative. Like some of those manosphere dudes like, oh, this fucking liberal dude is like scared to say retard. You know what I mean? Stuff like that where I'm like, bro, it's deeper than that. Like I think that everyone needs to be incorporated into every conversation pretty much, unless there's such a small vocal minority that their perspective doesn't represent a lot of people.
We definitely have to draw that line constantly on our podcast. And I would probably err on the side of like, like whatever, we can have on anyone. But Graham definitely is a little bit more disciplined in terms of this.
Part of me worries that there are certain people, if we have them on, just us having them on is a level to a certain extent of endorsement.
Yeah.
And I love to talk to people who I'm just curious about, and I'm not the type where I really want to like push back on things and disagree.
Yeah.
That's not fun for me. I'm just more inquisitive. I'm very curious about certain people and why they believe the things that they do.
Yeah. Exactly,
but if you
then
don't
it
push
comes
back,
across as an
if you don't push back, then it's like, okay, well, just me talking to you is almost seen as me. It's an endorsement.
Yeah. I just think it depends how shitty the person actually is. You know what I mean? Like if someone like, for example, Alex Jones made a mistake when he talked about the Sandy Hook situation in the way that he did, right? But, I think he's been dragged enough by the media about it. I think he's talked about it a million times. If I'm going to sit down with him again, I'm going to be curious about other things. So there's also the problem of when you platform somebody problematic, you have to continuously reinforce your own morality and be like, hey, I know we're having a great conversation, but what you said was fucked up. What are they supposed to say to that? That's not, what I mean?
It's just a continual, oh yeah, you're right.
Right. So it's like if I was to speak to Enrique Tarrio again, who just got free to storm the Capitol, you know what I mean? I would definitely bring up that I think January 6th is wrong. That's a pretty major plot point. But I'd be more curious about life after being released, not continuously dragging someone in the mud for a mistake that they made, even if it landed them in jail.